Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'd like to take the time to really just thank you for the opportunity of being here. I've come I wake up every morning. I love what I do because of the work and that's happening throughout the school system. So as I came in, actually before I got here, because we reviewed my 90-day entry plan coming in the door in our first meetings on that June 19th, and really wanted to bring an update to the board that really talks a little bit about our focus, and I'm going to do it from here, but I don't think that this is working. Is it on? It's not on. Is it on? On the side. There we go. Okay, great. I didn't get the training. So as we really look at, and I share this with our leaders, the first leadership summit, August 3rd, when I met with all our administrators, really our core business is student success. And you look at teachers, principals, staff, that is our support professionals included around our coherent governance and leadership team that we have here sitting at the dais, with our sound fiscal management that is very critical, and entire parents and community looking forward to. Really, when you think about it, this is a bullseye because student success is our #1 priority. So everybody around this community and our efforts to really do the great work that we're going to continue doing, it's around student achievement. A little bit here, what I will update you on, some of my listening, and there have been some tough conversations, I'm going to tell you, and I think that one of the things that I continue to hear from the community is that the narrative has to change. Because as I say to everyone throughout this community that I meet, we have pockets of excellence. We have some great schools, great principals, great staff, great support professionals that are going above and beyond. So how do we change the narrative and then build a system of excellence in sharing and the great work that we are doing? One of the things that I always say when people say to me, at the end, they all wish me luck. It's like, well, good luck, Superintendent. And my response, I don't need luck, because we all are going to do this together. And when you have our 42,000 employees and our entire community behind our 321,000 children that we serve, really is where we see the numbers. And I know that we will build our entire student success with all our children and this entire community. I've also heard very clear the passion that this community has for our kids. So that excites me every morning when I get up in the morning to come to work. So I've had more than 125 community meetings. I wanted to give you that update. I met my goal of 100. I surpassed it. So it's been busy, a lot of coffee and a lot of juice, but we've had some good discussions with everybody. I thought anybody that wants to meet with me to really help our children, I will be there. More than 107 school visits and department visits. I still have some. I know that there was some folks that have asked to meet with me, and certainly excited to do that. We've held 2 board retreats where we had some really great discussion, and I'm going to get a little bit into some of the work that we're starting to do with my staff around setting targets from the goals that we've set, and really look at, I've met with the Clark County, Henderson, the city of Henderson, Las Vegas, Mesquite, North Las Vegas. I've been out to, as you see that picture, had a great time in seeing our children in Moapa Valley and our farm that we have, and visiting with the governor, legislators, both. Right now I've had conversations with both candidates, not one candidate, but one of his staff, but we're looking forward just to see as we are moving into waiting for the outcomes, and met with legislative committees and legislators. So, thanks to Coffee Bean, and really the discussions have been brutally honest, but I believe that I needed to really get a clear understanding from our community. Lack of trust with the district from parents, teachers, support professionals, from everybody, really the lack of trust that they have in the school system, which is important to understand because it's something that we as a district need to build on. I've also, and I noted down, I've also enjoyed from Coffee Bean trying a new, not that I'm marketing for anybody, but the pomegranate blueberry ice tea latte has been one of my favorites, and really had a great time. Again, and I've tried to really change so we can get into the conversations also with Jamba with Juice, Jamba Juice, Juice with Jara. Again, same discussion with everybody. But, I think it's taken on a life of its own. I'm going to tell you the toughest conversation was with the fourth graders in Hayden Elementary, that in their morning announcements, they had Juice with Jara. And those are the fourth graders interviewing me in their morning announcements, and their last question, they wanted to make sure that I was a Golden Knights fan, which was one of the toughest questions in interview process that I had with our fourth graders, and really enjoyed my time. So when you really look at the breakdown, 4,600 people in this community that I've had a chance to meet, 4% of our students, media, employees, elected officials, but really you look at over close to 60% of parents and community members. They are critical for us to really have for me, a great understanding of what we need to do in the school system. 107 school department visits. It's been across the entire our districts, all members of this board. I visited your schools, had an opportunity to meet with central office. One of the things that has been for me, every time I go into our classrooms and I see our children, it just really, they're hungry and passionate to learn. Our teachers, our staff, our principals are doing great work. And there's some things that I'm going to talk about a little bit, but it's given me a great picture of the diversity of this wonderful community that and I have the pleasure to serve as superintendent. So it's been really an honor to be their superintendent when I sit and talk with them. So what I've learned, I put it down in 4 takeaways, right? And one of the things that is critical for me, and all means all, that means every single student that we serve, to me, this serves a high quality education. And I talk about the pockets of excellence. We have phenomenal magnets, we have phenomenal schools, we have, rising, shining star schools where you have principals in 5-star schools that are in 100% free and reduced lunch with a lot of community needs, and principals, teachers, staff, they're doing a great job for our children. So we need to make sure that we replicate that across 360 schools. When you look at, to me, improved teaching and learning conditions, that to me speaks to our instructional materials for our teachers to be able to teach. When the state has raised the bar for our students, I agree, we need to look at for our children to compete, but we have not been able to invest in instructional materials. As principals have said, I've had, I think, one high school principal said, last year we made 38 million copies because we didn't have updated textbooks. To me, that is fundamental. That is something that our teachers need so we can teach our children. When you have teachers using teacher, pay teacher, teachers going on, that is fundamental, and that's what I talk about, the learning conditions for our teachers to have the resources. Again, the trust in this community for this school system is something that I need to make sure that there's a level of trust with us as a system. And that's why it was critical for me as superintendent and the board to really ratify our bargaining agreements with all our bargaining units, because I think that is where, and again, I want to say on the record, is not enough, but it was what we needed to do. And again, and safety and security of our schools for our children, because again, as we don't have textbooks, we don't have the instructional materials. If children don't feel safe in school, they're not going to focus on learning. So it was important. When you look at the community pride and the equity that we have in our schools, again, access and equity and rich instruction across all our schools. When you look at, here's a picture of our high rollers, which is from the first day of school at Cimarron. I also had a chance to meet our pigeons, I believe, from Las Vegas High School as well. So we have, again, great things happening with robotics, with science, is how do we replicate that so every student, every high school has an opportunity to succeed across the board. And this is a picture when we did walk the red carpet, Dr. Young at Matt Kelly, our first day of school, and looking at what we need to do, lower our class size. How do we do that? We don't have the answer, because as we look at our classroom space, but it's something that we need to address. When you look at, and we've had this conversation at the board table, when you really see 35, 37 fifth graders in a fifth grade class, or you see 50, 47 kids, 45 kids in a high school, 40 kids in a middle school, it's a challenge that we need to address. And I've said that when you look at my meetings with members of the legislature, it's how do you continue, and what's your investment? If we say we believe in public education, and our message has to be very clear, how do we invest, and what is our investment in this state for public schools? When I also talk about an updated curriculum, and that is not a textbook. I want to make that very clear. I had great conversations with our principals yesterday, in our elementary school principals, because they were concerned that I'm thinking, well, that everybody's going to have the same textbook. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that we're going to have a standards curriculum. What curriculum means is not, because I don't need teachers teaching out of the textbooks, because textbooks are not aligned to standards. What we need to focus is teaching the standards and have the resources. And then how do we provide the resources? Principals were concerned, thinking, well, I'm going to take away. No, I'm not. If it's working and data is showing me that there's success, we're going to have you get involved with us and we select our instructional materials. And then we need to find ways that we invest in our teachers to help us create some of what we're talking about, so then we have it available. As we saw here at this board, at the board table, when we looked at our data, we have some great things happening. How do we replicate it in others and share some of the great information and instruction that's happening across the school? Also, the perception, right? So everybody that I've had conversations with, I ask, and how do you rate the school system on a 1 to 5? And not my school, it's the entire system as an organization. And it's about a 2.5. As a system, but they all love their school, their department. So it really is, that's what I continue to stress, so that it's the entire system of in this community. So, I'll tell you that the honest conversations and, the lack of consistent communication with the public, with principals, with schools, something that we need to address, and the talent acquisition that we need to really spend some time in when we look at our processing for HR and our processing to really provide support in our schools and all our departments, right? It's not just our schools, it's our entire departments. How do we then help them so we can get the right folks that are really committed to student achievement? And again, governance structure. Something that I continue, and I think this board, and we've made some great strides, and we'll continue to do that as one team, a team of 8. So it's really been fast forward and moving into safety and security here. How do we utilize our resources to make sure that our children feel safe? Concern from parents. And I know that we've acted and made some decisions to make sure that we continue to invest in the safety of our students. And as this board is aware, and the public, that I will be bringing to this board in December recommendations from the safety committee. So now I'm going to move into a little bit of some of my goals that I included in my entry plan coming in. What you will see is that some that have already been checked, that means we've met the goal, but not that we're satisfied, we continue. My efforts are a continuous improvement. We have to get better. We're not, just because I set the goals at the beginning doesn't mean we're gonna stop, because we have a lot of work to do. So here is some of the criteria. You'll see a checklist, and that means we met the goal, and completed means progress. We're still working on it. And the ones that are highlighted in red, that means that is something that I heard from community that we added because we needed to really invest time and effort. So community engagement coming in, and I think this was part of my efforts to get to know as many people in this community to really get a feel of what we wanted to do for the school system, not what Dr. Jara's vision. I remind folks, this is not what I want. This is what we want for our kids. Seek to understand the culture, the history, the expectations. Still have a lot of work to do, but in my community meetings, I've been able to do that. Proactive outreach to all stakeholders, particularly those underrepresented in public engagement. And this means that if they're not coming to us, we have to find ways to go to them, because their children still come to our schools, and enhance our relationship with outside partners to really support us with our vision, develop clear focus and transparency. And I'll tell you, and I'm looking for the teacher's name that I was supposed to, I'll get to her, but I don't know where it is, but she is, and this is the beauty of my meetings. They were small, about 10, 15, and I can't find her name, but she's a teacher at Miller Middle School. And when she said, stop using the word transparency, Superintendent, because the last 3 superintendents have said transparency is going to be a focus, and there's never been transparency, so just say honest. So I'm going to, give her credit, because it's what we need to do, is have honest conversations. Jennifer Manzanares. She's a teacher at, I wanted to give her credit. She's a counselor at Bob Miller Middle School. And I give her credit because she was honest and wanted to make sure that I changed from transparency, because that's kind of a buzzword that we've used in the past. So introduce myself. I've sent videos to staff, and again, because I think teachers and staff need to hear from me. And we formed the government relations, and thank members of our bargaining units who are part of our government relations. Again, an effort for us to lobby Carson City for the resources that we need. Our governance structure is really critical, as we know, is critical to the work that we need to do as one team with one goal, which is to make CCSD #1 for kids. We've had 2 trustee, as I mentioned, board meetings, because they haven't been retreats, because there's been a lot of work. And you set goals that we're working on. As of Monday, we started doing some work with my cabinet. Communication protocols between the trustees and myself, and we've had our bi-weekly meetings, and we've worked together on our balanced governance structure, again, in an effort to improve student achievement. So here are the meetings that we've had. They've been consistent, and I think last board meeting, it was an hour and 45 minutes. It was a record, but I think we've brought down and really having conversations around student achievement, which was a priority of this board. We still have something that I wanted to do, and we haven't met, is the Board of Trustees update on all divisions. So something that we haven't met, but we're looking forward to meeting that goal within my first year. So I would just remind the board, it's been 90+ days. So looking at student achievement, again, this was a great visit. When I say we're all children, which is Helen Elementary, which is it's a Shining Star school, 5-star, 100% free and reduced lunch, phenomenal staff. Again, and having an opportunity to meet with the children here and you really see the magic happening in our classrooms. Our efforts here, when you really get into this, was where I believe that we will be, and we are the best choice in Clark County. This is Guy Elementary School, where you have a school that's jumped from 2-star to a 4-star and has outperformed their neighborhood schools. And when I say is there's a charter that's right next to it. So there's things happening in Clark County. Is how do we share the message with the public so they know that our schools can compete with anybody, and our teachers, our principals, and our staff do a phenomenal job across this valley. Student achievement race, you know, we're looking, and we've had a great opportunity and have discussion raising expectations and sharing that message. We're doing a deep review of our curriculum alignment. This is something that Dr. Gullett and her team are continuing to invest some time, identify the chronically underperforming schools, because we need to address that so we can make sure that all our children are continuing to improve. Dr. Gullett and her team, again, getting a deep review of the English, the ELL master plan as well, to see what we need to do differently to support our schools, conduct a review. Something that we're starting but haven't gotten into is a review of the gifted and talented program, and determine methods to monitor student achievement. Something that, as we talked here at the October 3rd board meeting, how do we, what schools are doing great, how do we then replicate it in monitoring so then we can drive the instruction in our classrooms? You know, here we've only gotten 2, but, you know, these are first year indicators. The data is not out yet. It just, as a matter of fact, we just shared, but we added here, this is something that this board was working on, but we put it in here because there's the implementation of the School Community Justice Partnership, and again, the School Safety Advisory Committee that we are investing time and efforts. Something that I just want this board, I shared it October 3rd, but we had some funds that we had available from last year. So what we did, we reallocated Title I monies back to our schools. 71 schools that received a little bit of funding support to really narrow the achievement gap. And this was to put, you know, instead of cutting teachers because of what was happening in our schools, well, we added some funding. So our neediest children had a little bit of extra funds, and we reallocated that back to our schools. Our calculus project, I'm excited under Dr. Barton and his leadership, is really created a calculus project in 4, actually 3. We were still waiting on that 4th one of our at-risk middle schools to prepare more students for high school calculus. Again, identifying students targeted to in 6th grade, provide extra support, so then when they get to high school, they're ready for AP calculus. Our college and career equity unit, working with leaders across the school system to increase our AP offerings. If you recall, one of the things that under Dr. Barton's leadership, where our commitment is to have 15 AP courses in all our high schools. It's not just in some, it's in all our high schools, because every student should have the same opportunity, whether you're in the urban core, in the rurals. Students need to have the opportunity to participate in college level courses. So I'm excited about that work. We've seen this data, the data that we have, and this is an effort, and I wanted to come back and focus on the data, because our data is going to drive our decisions that we're going to make across the school system. We have tremendous gaps across the district that we need to address. And as this board, and I can flip through some of them, these are English, math, and you've seen this, but I wanted to really look at some of the numbers, because it is important to share that when you look at the work that we're doing as a school system, and we're going to continue to do, is really to spend time in addressing the gaps, because again, there's pockets and there's schools that are doing phenomenal work with our minority children. So how do we replicate that and share it across the entire system. That is critical for our work, and our FRL, our Hispanic Latino students need to perform and should be performing at the same level as others. And something that we need to address as a system is our chronic absenteeism. And in our conversations with our principals, really is what do we need to do to help them and support them. And I know they're having conversations individually, but I think as a system, we need to address as a whole. Human capital, our team is our greatest resources, is our greatest resource. And we must invest in our in our staff, in our entire staff. So when we look at some of the goals that I set in my 90-day plan, there's only two: review employee evaluation system that we have as a district. I do want to commend Dr. Larson Mitchell and her team of principals that presented to the state. And this was one I still remember when I met with the administrators and teachers. And I'm looking at Steve Osberger because we were in the meeting, and they said, Superintendent, we need to address the NEPF. And this was, I think, week 2, and I'm happy to report that Dr. Larson Mitchell and I shared with our board and our principals that they presented yesterday, and it was, I got a text from the state superintendent. They were very impressed with our team, and I think they're looking at it as a model. And so it's going to be at the state board meeting to have an alternate evaluation system. You know, and so again, Dr. Larson Mitchell, thank you for leading the effort. And I say this because, as I say to principals, our efforts need to be around curriculum and instruction and teaching and learning, not filling out 6 pages of paperwork or more, 26. It was 3 hours, and I think that's important because that's time we can give folks back to be involved in our classroom. And again, as I pointed out, our collaboration with our labor unions was important for me, and I highlighted. So there's a couple. I'm just going to go on the ones that I crossed off, and I think I met the 45 in my first marking period. But we have a lot of different things. If you look at this is a priority, aligning our collective bargaining agreements with Assembly Bill 469. That's something that I know we need to address through the bargaining, our collective bargaining agreements, so it's aligned. So we have some other things in there that I will still continue. I have high goals, but I think I hold myself accountable to high standards, because I know you will hold me accountable to high standards as well. So this is really something that I'm committed to doing. In legislative priorities, really our focus is around teaching and learning and our conditions that we need to do, and as we settled our contracts, as we've done that tonight, and I think next board meeting we'll have our police officers. You know, efficient operations is critical, and in the work that we need to do, because it's how do we drive information. Here's Jennifer's name. It's in another slide here, but fiscally sound, and how do we drive more money into our classrooms. So it's an opportunity, and I know that our CFO is, when I met with our budget task force that was set with the previous administration, and one of the recommendations was to do a control audit, not a fiscal audit, it's a control and systems audit. This board approved that September 27th, which is now Mr. Gowdy is working on to start the implementation. So again, looking at the efficiencies that we need to create within our operations unit to, again, drive more money into the classroom. Aligning our budget to our priorities. I reviewed every department head and their operations, cross-functional capacity, really with an effort on customer service, not only with our schools, but with our community, something that we have a lot of work to do, because I think that is one of the things into build trust in the school district, and an in-depth review of all our federal programs as well. Are we getting the necessary resources that really supports our students? Our Council of Great City Schools, as we are members of the council, if you recall, they will be coming in a couple of weeks to do an entire review of our operations. So what they're doing is they're at no cost. no cost. We're not paying the Council of Great City Schools. We are members, and it's a service that Dr. Mike Casserly has agreed, and he is bringing COOs from across the country, working with Mr. Rick Neal to really look at our transportation, our food service, our facilities, and our construction. What can we do differently? What can we do better? And again, to really provide a service to this community and for our schools. You know, some of these indicators that we didn't meet, but again, I remind the board it's 1 year, not 90 days, but I just wanted to provide an update. And how do we provide more funding? I wanted to, it's important to share, since when I arrived, I really held administrative positions. So open central office positions that have not been filled at a $1.2 million since June 19th to today. So we have not filled positions, so that's to a savings of $1.2 million. Eliminated when we had a retirement and when they had the promotion of Dr. Larson Mitchell into a vacancy, and we didn't fill those 2 positions and didn't fill secretary positions. So we had total savings, and there were some reorganizations within the academic unit. So the total since June to today, to October 1, is $2 million. Some of this funding has been used, right, to pay some of what we just approved this evening. And so it's money that, again, driving into the work that needs to happen in our school. So organizational capacity, again, how do we work more efficiently, aligning our work with to support our schools? Communication, communicating high expectations for our schools, conduct a retreat, which is what we're doing now. We did that on Monday. This board has set goals for me, and I want the board to know that we started our work here to really build the capacity and set some of the expectations. As I shared with our principals today, you know, we will set the goals as a district. Then we will ask our principals to then align their goals. We're not going to tell them how to reach their goals, right? Because principals have the ability, and they're doing a great job. Is how they do their work is up to them. We're not going to dictate. I just want to make sure that very clear in the public. We're not going to tell them how to do it. We're going to say, here's our target as a board, as a school system. You need to get there. You do it with your staff, and you drive your own budget and your own decisions. So it's not on a mandate and eliminating autonomy, because that is not what we're talking about here. Again, continue to review administrative vacancies across the district and structure protocols and practice and the communication across the school system. We have areas of growth, but I think that, you know, I'm excited with the effort and, you know, the honesty and the gaps, and I just, you know, as I say to folks, and I get really excited about where we're headed. I love what I do. I love my job. I work with a great team. I'm really excited about what we can do for the students in the school system together. One of the highest goals that I shared this with the team on Monday, and really, I believe that once we set our plan in place, the conversations that we're having in this community, I believe that in 5 years, that we will be a system that we will not have any 1- or 2-star schools in 5 years. If we align all our energy as adults in this community with a passion, with everybody that I've had a conversation with, we can be that model district in the country. So I'm turn it over to the board for comments or discussions, but I want to reiterate, I love my job, and I love getting up in the morning to come to work with this great team. Thank you.